Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on the European stage, as it were. I'm going to share some slides with you just for some context. What I plan to do today, take about 20 minutes to talk through those slides and just position things. We're going to cover a little bit about what the data from the sector tells us about student satisfaction and skills. A little bit about what the data that we have across our 68 million learners in Coursera tells us. And then we'll go in and talk about how Coursera is currently working with universities in this regard. So I'll do that technical thing of sharing my screen now, make sure I don't break everything. Okay, and is everybody seeing that screen? If not, I'm sure someone will let me know. So the title of this talk is How Digital Courses Can Teach Skills for Employability and Increase Student Satisfaction. And I think that's the key thing with student satisfaction. And yesterday, one of my team, Frances Quirk, some of you may know her, actually pointed out this report that JISC had published earlier this week. And of a survey that they did of over 40,000 higher and further education students, less than a quarter of them actually said that their digital teaching was up to par, frankly. And we can't blame this on emergency teaching. 90% of these responses were pre-COVID. So if the sector wants to use digital teaching to increase student satisfaction, it's really going to need to do a much better job. And I do encourage any of you interested in this area to go onto JISC's website and take a look at this report. It's very comprehensive. So that perennial question, what is student success? We're with THE today. So according to the Times Higher Education Student Success Survey, university leaders say that the most important factor in delivering student success and the challenges affecting its delivery are attention, which translates into the completion of courses, satisfaction with the learning experience itself, and ultimately employability. In other words, a university is preparing students for their chosen path. And we've got data from students themselves to tell us what those chosen paths are. In fact, students make career decisions at the very start of their application journey, and it's at the front of their minds throughout their studies. And when asked what their most important graduate outcome measures were, unsurprisingly, the most important measure was graduate employment rate. Now, whilst higher education should not exist as a jobs factory, getting a start in the right career is clearly pretty important to learners. And if we look right across Europe, less than half of 20,000 students surveyed said their education gave them a good basis to develop advanced literacy, numeracy, and digital skills, as well as the social, entrepreneurial, and managerial skills that they strive for. And then back to JISC from last year in the UK, only 42% of students said their course prepared them for the digital workplace. And pretty much all workplaces are becoming digital. So let's look at what's happening in the jobs market. And I'll try and keep reference to COVID at a minimum here, but we are seeing a tsunami of future skills development need. Even before COVID, we had warnings of how this fourth industrial revolution was accelerating, and the acceleration of technology and automation was impacting jobs. Now, if we add to that the unprecedented impact that COVID is having on jobs, and unfortunately, the worst hit jobs are those lower skilled jobs at most risk of automation. I have a 5-year-old. I asked him this morning what he wants to be when he grows up, and it changes regularly. Today, he said he wants to be a policeman, a fireman, and a chef, and everything. He always ends with everything. Last week, it was a builder, a doctor, and a chef, so I'm okay with the chef bit. I'm hoping these are pretty safe bets, but honestly, whenever I prepare for a talk like this and look at these stats, I start to wonder, I start to worry. So we've literally hundreds of millions of people seeking new skills and employment. We already have a capacity problem, and both employers and learners aren't very satisfied with higher education's current ability to prepare students for the workforce. And there's plenty of warnings, and there have been for some time, about how jobs will simply disappear and be replaced by ones we don't know about yet. So, what can higher education do about it? Now, let me be clear, whilst there's currently a mismatch between expectations and reality, universities still give us by far the best opportunity to address these problems. Learners, businesses, governments, we're all looking to the sector as the critical engine for skill development. And it continues to be a force for good and development in society. What's happening now makes universities more important and essential than ever. So I'm proposing 3 key aspects that higher education leaders should consider. Number 1, get much closer to understanding the individual skills that employers need. And your careers office will be a really good start for this. 2, create partnerships so that you can scale fast and deliver what's needed now. No one single organization can possibly create and deliver everything that's needed. Things are just moving far too fast. So once you identify what's needed, look beyond your own walls to fulfill that need. And 3, finally, mix it up. Give learners options on how to engage with you. For instance, even though most online learning over the past few months has been emergency teaching, online learning Jeannie, she's really out of the bottle now and she isn't going back. And how can Coursera help? Well, I'm going to run through these slides very quickly. And ultimately, if anything resonates, we should be having a discussion. So why? We have a unique view of the global learning and skills landscape. First, we've got over 68 million learners on our platform today. And they're taking courses, over 4,000 courses, from 200 plus exceptional university and industry partners. These are partners like Imperial College, NSEAD, Bocconi University, and industry partners like IBM and Google and PwC and many other global leaders. And we've been hired by over 2,800 businesses and governments to help train and upskill their workforce. And so these relationships and the data generated gives us incredible insight into what skills employees need and will need in the future. And it's a virtuous cycle. We learn from what top employers want. We share these insights with our university and industry leaders, and they create courses that our 68 million learners desire and want to learn. So let's dig into Europe and let's take a look at what Europe is learning. Okay, we took a snapshot earlier this week of our learners right across Europe. And at a high level, this shows we have over 13 million learners and nearly 30 million enrollments across the region. If you look at learners and enrollments by country, side by side, you can see that some countries seem to have a higher number of enrollments per learner, which is interesting. So Russia, Germany, Turkey, for instance, they're jumping up the table when we look at enrollments. It would be interesting to dig a little deeper into why that is. By the way, a typical individual Coursera course takes between 4 and 10 weeks with a few hours study each week. It's a significant commitment. So let's take a look at what these 13 million European learners are investing all that time on. So unsurprisingly for us anyway, business, computer, and data science, they're usually what we see as the top 3 right across the globe. Interestingly, at the moment at least, except for Africa, in Africa, we see health coming in at number 3. And then if we look at the top individual courses, machine learning, learning how to learn the science of well-being. The science of well-being itself, I think, has had more than 2 million enrollments in the past 6 months. So from Yale, well worth looking out. But if we look at some of these, learning how to learn, for instance, we work with universities to provide a creation of some of these courses for university entry, like learning how to learn, as well as getting ready for graduation in the jobs market. So this is just a snapshot of some of the data we have, but what do we do with all that data? Well, we know and work with the companies who are trying to hire your students, and we know the skills that are in demand from them. And these logos represent 2,800 companies that have hired Coursera, or represent some of the 2,800 companies that have hired us. And they've hired us to help with their skills development. So it puts us in a unique position to know what job relevant skills that your students will need as they enter the workforce and work for some of these companies. And they tell us very clearly what they're looking for in their future employees and leaders. And we're able to turn these needs into curations of courses and specializations based on disciplines and job types. So this is an example of an essential skills map that we use as a starting point for our customers, and when we're having conversations with them about which curations to bring together of their courses and our courses to create the desired outcome. And a lot of this data drives our annual publication of the Global Skills Index. We could spend hours just on this, but if you want to understand more about the state of skills across Europe or your country, or any region or industry for that matter, I encourage you to download a copy of this from the website, and we have a link in the last slide. Okay, zeroing back in on higher education. In March, when we saw what was happening across the world, we got together with our university and industry partners and we launched our campus response initiative. So we were in a unique situation. We'd already launched Coursera for Campus, which was designed for universities late last year. By February this year, we'd already had about 30 universities around the world that were using it with their students. So we already had the content and the platform in place. So whilst it took a Herculean effort by many great minds at Coursera over a couple of weeks, we were able to offer that out for free to the entire global higher education community. And by the way, if your university isn't already enrolled in this, you've got about a week left to enroll and get students to enroll in courses. So I would encourage you to take a look at this. So about 7 months ago, we had 30 universities using Coursera for Campus. Where are we today? Well, it's pretty impressive. Universities from all over the world are responding and starting to implement online learning. We've got 10,000 individual programs. It actually represents about 6,000 degree granting institutions right across the world. And students are taking to it massively, 1.7 million. This number just keeps going up and up every other day we look at it. And more than 32 million hours of learning spent on the platform. And here's a view just particularly across Europe. So I don't know the makeup of the countries represented on this session, but it would be interesting to see if any of your institutions are actually part of those numbers. Okay, so we looked at what students, employers, and the sector is saying. We looked at a snapshot, and just a snapshot of the data and insights from the Coursera ecosystem. Now let's take a look at how Coursera is partnering with universities to deliver what we think is needed. Okay, so here's the sponsored bit. What exactly is Coursera for Campus? Okay, let me share with you some of the key elements. The first is really high quality content. So this is what comes from our top university and industry partners that I mentioned. We've got over 3,800 high quality, career ready, relevant courses available now. The second is authoring. So actually allowing your own faculty or students for that matter to create and author courses for your own community. In today's world, actually enabling faculty to author their own projects, assessment, and even full courses, it's becoming important. So not just, we all love Zoom, yes, but let's move beyond the Zoom lectures and give them the ability to use the same platform that all of our content partners are creating to create content for their own students. The third is hands-on learning. So along with content, providing access to hands-on learning is super important. Earlier this year, we launched something called guided projects. I've got a slide on this after, but it's a methodology to enable hands-on learning for your students. Fourth is bringing that insight for what those job-ready skills are. So from our work with industry, we bring to your campus tools like that essential skills map and skills development dashboards, which can really guide students towards developing job-ready skills. And we've got a deep understanding of what skills industry wants students to build. And we can work with your leadership teams to bring together curations that make sense for your students, for your particular university, in your country, in your locale. And then finally, our platform allows for really easy integrations into your infrastructure. So you'll be using an LMS already, I'm sure. We can integrate with that, whether it's through single sign-on. We've also got tools built in for academic integrity, online proctoring, for instance, and it's all on an incredibly scalable tech platform. So if you want to scale to 5, 10,000, 20,000 students, we can do that very, very quickly. In fact, we scaled from 40 million learners in February to 68 million learners today. So that's an indication of the level of scale that we can adopt. So what you're teaching on campus can be complemented by knowledge and hands-on learning that will eventually lead to job and career success. And all of this leads to better career outcomes. And whether that's to go get a job or whether to go onto a master's track bringing these things together can help. So this is an example of the private authoring. So your faculty would have full access to our private authoring toolkit. They can create their own courses using exactly the same authoring platform used by leading university, industry and content partners. And actually, this is a snapshot. This is a video from Learning How to Learn, that second most popular course in a slide I showed earlier. And then within each course is assessment and feedback mechanisms are built in. And these are extremely important. So depending on the type of course, there may be different forms of assessment. These might be in-video questions, they could be discussion prompts, cognitive and summative quizzes, all these built into the courses. And this is an incredibly important point. Assessments are either machine or peer graded. So this means you can scale online incredibly quickly without massively increasing the workload of your academic staff. And then, as mentioned last year, we created hands-on projects, which we call guided projects. These are short hands-on learning courses, maybe an hour or two, which bring an application to life. So it can be tricky to do in courses sometimes unless you can go to a computer lab with expensive, powerful computers that already have the software installed. Not something we can easily do today. So this allows you to do those types of things that you would normally do in an expensive computer lab on your own computer within a browser. We did this because we realized learners, they were getting enough knowledge of theoretical concepts, but they wanted to dive more into using real life situations. And after they get hands-on experience, they actually feel more comfortable with the theoretical concepts. Okay, so this is how we think about making students job and future ready with the skills they need. So students, this is an example for an engineering undergrad. A student would be taking courses from your university. You can complement that with Coursera content from top universities and leading industry partners, as well as those hands-on guided projects I mentioned. Those can either be for credit, integrated into your curriculum, or they could just be electives. And this combination prepares students with the key knowledge and skills that they're going to need to be job and future ready. By the way, I mentioned it briefly, but the platform, it's an incredibly powerful platform which gives you insight into the mastery level across skill domains of your students, and in fact your staff and faculty and academics if you choose to give them access to the platform as well. It's an incredibly powerful platform, real-time analytics and insights, and frankly we love showing this to university leadership, so we'd be happy to do so. Okay, I'm going to finish off where I started. Back to that report from JISC earlier this week. Less than a quarter of students, and this is just from the UK, across further education and higher education, less than a quarter gave positive feedback on digital courses. And literally earlier this morning, we took a snapshot of rating right across our millions of learners across the globe, across all domains. And this is what it looks like. So you can see across our 11 primary domains, what the rating is. Roughly, we're looking at a 4.7 out of 5. We have learners actually mark things out of 5 in the normal traditional way, if you like. And our learners love these courses. And I put this to you. If you were measuring student satisfaction of your own university's digital courses, what rating would you like your students to give? Okay, so thanks very much for your time. I hope some of this has resonated. We've pulled together some resources that may be of interest. I assume these slides will be available and sent out. On the 14th of October, we've got our own global event. It's actually the anniversary event of the launch of Coursera for Campus, the University of the Future. So you're welcome to join that. There's also links to our latest Global Skills Index. So your careers office will be incredibly interested in that, I hope. And we've recently produced a white paper on learning how to build resilient teaching models, gathering some of the experiences of our partners over the past few months into a white paper that hopefully will be of help to the sector. Also, please do reach out to us if you'd like a private session with your leadership team, where we can dig a little bit more deeply into the relevant data and what it might mean to your institute within your country. We'd be pleased to accommodate. Thank you very much.
We do have a little bit of time left now for Q&A if you'd like to take a couple of questions.
Okay, so from Kia, what's the benefit of advertising Coursera courses when the university is charging the students tuition? I'm not sure I fully understand it, but I will. Benefit of advertising Coursera courses when the university is charging the students tuition. Well, if the university is charging students tuition, what Coursera for Campus can do is form part of your curriculum to the students. So in the same way, you've got your university professors creating their own content and perhaps bringing in content from other esteemed academics, books, for instance. What this proposition is, look at the Coursera catalog and see which elements of that catalog can further enhance your curriculum and actually increase your students' possibility and opportunity to conceive. And it just forms part of the university's offering to its students. So actually, I would say if the university is already charging the students tuition, what we're doing with Coursera and the partnership here is giving them even more value. I hope that answered the question. Question from Harriet, do I think that digital learning is here to stay? What will this look like post-pandemic? That is a good question. So Harriet, I've been in education technology for just over 23 years. I've never seen the opportunity that presents itself right now. What I think COVID has done, not just to the education industry, but almost to many industries, is it accelerated the need for digital transformation. And so what we're seeing now, and we're seeing this right across sectors, so from primary, secondary, further education and universities. And in fact, I think it's more rapid acceleration in say, high schools. But what we're seeing is the plans that universities had to go online and blended over the next 5, 10, 20 years. It's happening over the next 5, 10, 20 months now. Do I think it's here to stay? Absolutely. I think that, look at the ratings that we're seeing from our millions of learners around the globe. If you can provide a multimodal way for students to learn, and I'm not saying this is going to replace on campus or replace traditional teaching and learning, this should be a full picture so that students who, and most students are non-traditional students now, they're working, they're parents. So if we can give students the best possible option to learn in the way they want and do that digitally at scale, we have to do that. Also, there are millions and millions of learners around the world that simply don't have access to education in parts of the emerging markets, if you will. And online learning is really the only way that they're going to get that access. So it's on the industry, it's on us to actually deliver that.